I'm Anthony Davis from 5 Minute News. On the day that the disgraced former President Donald Trump surrendered at the Fulton County Jail on racketeering and conspiracy charges over his efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in the state of Georgia, where he was processed as any criminal defendant and had his mugshot taken. The former president's brief booking marks yet another stunning moment in which the Republican frontrunner in the 2024 race was, again, under arrest in a major criminal case. The booking came during the primetime viewing hours for news networks, a time slot that Trump is said to have insisted his lawyers negotiate with prosecutors in an apparent effort to discredit the charges and distract from the indignity of his surrender. And instead of having some prepared choice words, an opportunity with the world watching to say something poignant and helpful towards his case, he again reiterated his dissatisfaction of the justice system. He complained about the charges and said he had every right to question the 2020 election results.
If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that.
Well, yes, he's right. You are allowed to challenge an election. You take your views to the court, you present the case to the court, and the court will rule. And in 62 court cases, you lost. You were told that there was no election interference. It was investigated. Every single count was recounted and double-checked. And even independent checkers said there was no fraud. Aside from Trump-appointed judges who said there was no fraud, in addition to your own Attorney General who said there was no fraud. And this is why there is a case against you. Because instead of just following the law of the land like everybody else, you continued to insist that it was stolen when it wasn't. You lost the election, you weren't happy about it, so you lied about it. And that's the difference.
When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think the world knows what you're talking about. To have the freedom to challenge elections, and it's very dishonest. You had so much time to prepare a speech for this moment in history, and you chose not to. And if that is not proof of your inflated ego and the fact that you are completely detached from reality, then I don't know what is.
And that goes with the other ones, too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before. This is their way of campaigning.
You're right. There has never been anything like this in history before, because no former president would ever have done what you did. What you did is so far removed from the role of a president to agree under your oath of office to the peaceful transfer of power. And you didn't. You staged a coup against the United States. You lied about the election. You convinced half the country that you were right and the courts were wrong. And the very process of that takes away people's rights.
And this is one instance, but you have three other instances. It's election interference. So I want to thank you for being here. We did nothing wrong at all. And we have every right, every single right, to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, that we think is very dishonest.
And now to spin the phrase election interference, which of course is describing exactly what happens when foreign countries interfere with an election, or Cambridge Analytica interfere with an election as they did in 2016 to try and get you elected, or if the Kremlin interferes with the election. You know, that is what election interference means. But to take that phrase and to turn it to describe what you claim the Justice Department is doing, claiming the Justice Department is weaponized when it is an independent agency and it is following the law. If you break the law, you'll be investigated. And you broke the law. So, if you're innocent, go to court. Say what you got to say, and you'll be let off, and everyone can breathe a sigh of relief. But that's not going to happen, is it?
Every single right to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, that we think is very dishonest. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.
And so that's it. That's your entire defense. We had every right to challenge an election. Despite all these lawyers that you've been meeting with and all the advice that you've given, all you can say is we had every right to challenge the election. You didn't just challenge it, you overturned it. You caused a coup. You invited your fans, your supporters to force their way into the US Capitol building. You wanted Mike Pence arrested and hung. You know, you are leaving out huge swathes of history, stuff that we have watched on television live. And if this is your defense, you're going to find yourself in a federal prison or a Fulton County jail cell very, very quickly. I'm Anthony Davis. You can hear me every day on the 5 Minute News podcast, on Wednesdays on MAGA Uncovered, and on Sunday hosting The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.